All right, good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Sean Callan,
Here.
Julie Chetney,
Here.
Tom Chiappa,
Here.
David Crisafulli,
Here.
Jim McKenzie's here, Kristen Norfleet,
Here.
and Sean Onmont.
Here.
We can stand for the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so floor to the public. I don't think nobody has signed up. So first on the agenda is the Board of Education. Item A is our 2024-2025 Oswego City School District Code of Conduct. 2 meetings ago, we introduced it and discussed it again last meeting. So this is the time where we actually vote on it. So if I can have a motion for A, please.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second it.
Thank you, Sean. Any discussion? Okay, having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Item B, similarly, we introduced 2 meetings ago and again last meeting. This is our 2024-25 Oswego City School District district-wide safety plan. So if I can, a motion for item B, please.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, David. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Any discussion on the district-wide safety plan? Heard none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. And the final thing is discussion, presentation of a proposed fall 2024 capital project referendum with Dr. Kilmer.
Good evening, everyone. This evening, we have 3 architects from King & King Architects, Carrie Tiroli, Erica Civitella, and Amy Daly, who are going to be presenting to you our proposed project that we would like to bring forward to the voters in October. If you recall, I presented to you all a couple of meetings ago a long-range facility plan to address the many facility needs that Oswego City School District has. This project would be step 1. And so today is kind of the very first meeting where we will talk a little bit more about that, talk more specifically about what is built into this project, try to address any questions that you have, and we'll take it from there. So I will turn it over to them. Yeah.
Before that, can you just remind us all, like the building condition survey and how that tied into the long-range plan and really how everything fits together?
Absolutely.
So that what we're trying
And
to
they are
address.
absolutely gonna,
Oh.
that's actually a part of their presentation, so I'll have them start off, and then we'll come back and address that again as well, because I think that's a really key part. It's not as if we're randomly looking for items to address. There is extensive work that goes into reviewing our facilities. We're obligated to do so under New York State regulation. And that was kind of the preface to really look at, okay, what are the things that we need to do and how do we make this happen and create facilities that are most conducive to learning for our students for the future. So with that, you bet.
I think I'm first. We split it up. First of all, I'm the new person from King & King, so I'm Erica. Looking forward to meeting and working with all of you guys on these upcoming projects. All right, let me see if I can operate. Nope.
You gotta be closer.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Okay, so just to touch on kind of the timeline of what's been going on from March 2024 to where we are today. If you recall, the BCS was submitted in March of 2023. The goal of the BCS is really to have us design professionals, architects, engineers. We go out into all the buildings, all the district-owned buildings. We look at any equipment, any finishes, any infrastructure items, windows, roofing, and we really evaluate what is nearing the end of their useful life and what needs to be put on the BCS list within the next 5 years. So that is really the goal of the BCS that you guys had submitted back in March of 2023. We also go through and we we apply costs to all of these. So there was some, I believe that Amy Pye came at a previous board meeting and presented a lot of this information to you guys. But we have been working with all those BCS items, with kind of a long list of items now, and we have been prioritizing and developing a long-range plan with all of those. The goal of the long-range plan is really to address the highest priority items from those infrastructure needs, as well as addressing some educational program upgrades, while the entire time maximizing aid for all the projects. So that is also part of this process. I don't remember the total amount, but typically the BCS values are quite large. That is
Shy of 200 million.
okay. So that is
Yeah.
not uncommon, I have to say.
Yeah.
In order to get all of those addressed, the plan is really to come out and have a proposed capital project every 2 years. So the first one, we're proposing October of 2024. The next one, 2026, 28, and 30. Really, that's kind of the plan in order to get all of these items addressed. So with that, the first one is suggested to be in October of 2024. We are looking at total project cost of around $46.5 million. A lot of the work is, well, there's work at every school building, as well as transportation and the bus garage. A bulk of the work is at the high school, Fitzhugh, and Kingsford. That's where a lot of the scope is right now. You can see the values that we've allocated for each school as well. And then Amy's going to go through some of the more specifics on those items. So it's this button right here.
Perfect. Thank you. Hello. So in that dollar amount that you saw listed on the last slide for the high school, I'm not going to read every single line item on all of these slides for you, but you will see we're going to do reconstruction of the media center, reconstruction of the technology and CTE rooms, and then pretty much full gym replacements, right? And refinishing of the new gym floor. So it would be wall pads, bleachers, backstops, partition, scoreboards, painting. So complete renovations of the gym and some infrastructure. At the middle school, we're going to continue on, right? So the last phase, phase 3B from the last referendum, we were doing the classroom U and renovating all those. So now we would go back in and do the main office, nurse and counselor suite. Fitzhugh and Kingsford are pretty much sister buildings, so the work is pretty similar at each. There's a lot of infrastructure work that was pulled off of the BCS, so it's not all of it, but it's a majority of it. And the big ticket things that you would see that we all know we need to do are the windows, louvers and sills, exterior doors. We're going to continue and finish up the masonry repointing around the building, and in turn, when we do that, do what we did in the last phase as well and fix the plaster exterior walls where the moisture has come through. So Kingsford, a lot of the same that I just said at Fitzhugh. At Layton, we'll replace the generator and the distribution system and the boiler plant. At Minetto, we will construct an accessible bathroom off of the cafeteria. That was a suggestion from SED on our last phase 3 when we did work in there. And upgrade the cafetorium AV systems and curtains, add additional exterior lighting, and put down some new safety surfacing at the playground. At Riley, we will replace the generator again, like,
See a theme there.
yep, we're pretty much, I haven't hit on it at every school, but we have it in for every school. Transportation center and bus garage, we will add air conditioning to the training room. We will replace and upgrade the fire alarm system at both transportation and bus garage. And then we'll reconstruct the asphalt and the drainage going from Fitzgibbons all the way back to like the bus driver's parking lot, the one that's over near the track. Now I'll turn it over to Carrie.
So are there any questions on that before we talk about next steps and schedule? Okay.
Just to be clear,
Yes.
when you said that we're going to go through all the BCS items to clear them up and that, it's not like that's ever going to go away. Items will come on that over the years and everything, just so
Thank
people
you.
understand that.
Yeah. As Erica mentioned early on, the BCS at that point in time in 2022 submitted to the state in March of '23, wanted to know what was the highest priorities in the next 5 years, right? You'll do that again in 5 years, and there's going to be the items that unfortunately we can't tackle. We can only do, maybe 80 of the 200 million in that first 5 years. And then additional items will come on. That's just the nature of the beast. You're never going to clear a building condition survey.
Something that doesn't necessarily always show up in a building condition survey is instructional spaces. Right?
Correct.
So when we're talking about, because if we go to the high school and we look at the heavy part, that's focused on instructional space. It's focused on the CTE technology classrooms and the library. So what we're trying to do, and I spoke with the board about this, really trying to emphasize and prioritize instructional spaces within the district. And so every single project that we bring forward to you as a board and to the community will try to prioritize, again, instructional spaces, but balance that with meeting the needs identified under the building condition survey. So even though if we go back to when we had John Bick here from, to kind of review our fiscal plan to finance that long-range facility plan, that's about $175 million worth of work, right? $175 million worth of work over the next 4 projects. Now, granted, how do we pay for that? It was all based off of using capital reserve, using what we have and trying to establish some additional without having to go back out to ask our taxpayers for additional funds. But even that $175 million, which just seems like, gosh, it's so wonderful, it's still not addressing everything on the building condition survey. It will not address everything on that building condition survey. And we'll never get everything on it. And so for us, we have to continue to try to prioritize with facilities committee and our architects and engineers as to, okay, what are the instructional priorities of the district and what are the instructional needs of the district, and then balance that with what are the infrastructure needs of the buildings and make sure that we're addressing those along the way. And so I think what you'll see, not only in this project, but in future projects, is a balance of those items to try to address both priorities.
Thank you.
And also, I just want to say to the board, on behalf of the facilities committee, Dave and Sean and myself, if you guys have any questions, I mean, we're learning a lot. Jabber and I are trying to catch up with Dave and how much he knows from all of his experience in the district. But there is a lot to learn. And in the past 4 weeks, we've gone to different buildings and walked through them. And you might look at something, and this is just things, some of my takeaways, and you see what's on the surface, and you're like, okay, so yeah, let's do that. That's easy, the technology room. But really, from an infrastructure standpoint, you have to look at that, and that's where these guys help us, where we might have to do the entire wing of that section of the school. So it really costs a lot more money. It's not as easy as just taking a room and saying, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to have a new technology space. It's quite more complicated than that. So we look at it and we say what we see, but then we really get direction and help from the architects on, okay, here's how we can tackle that. It's going to be a better instructional space, but structurally, in anything that's above the ceiling or around the walls, like that's being addressed too for the sustainability of that area. So there's a lot, but you guys should definitely just please, if you have any questions, let us know and we can help, because every 2 weeks for an hour and a half to 2 hours, we're pounding on this with the help of these guys. So
Thank you. I think one last thing I'll add to this is we really made sure that when we are going into a space or an area, we're going all in and completing it all, everything all at once. The high school gymnasium floors were on the building condition survey. We don't want to just go in and do the floors. If we're going in, let's do the wall pads, let's do the bleachers, let's paint it so it looks nice when we're in there. If we do all that and then the doors look 30 years old and beat up from lacrosse balls and other PE activities, we just want to replace that. We want to do everything all at once so it's done, ready to go, and we don't have to go back in there in 2 or 4 years again, right? That's not efficient. That's not a good use of anyone's dollars or time, so. Okay. We'll jump back to the schedule. So to have a referendum in October, there's a couple of steps that need to happen prior to that. You need to adopt a seeker resolution that there's a few different ways that could go. There are unlisted actions and type 1 actions, and those are really for projects that have more of a significant environmental aspect. You've seen the scope of work. Nothing that we have proposed here. We're not doing additions. We're not illuminating fields that don't have lights. We're not doing anything that's going to disrupt stormwater or bats or, your neighbors. We believe it's our recommendation that it's a type 2 action, and you have a resolution later on tonight. I believe that you'll be voting on to say, yes, we will be the lead agency, and yes, we believe this is a type 2 action with no significant environmental impact, right? If you were to be building an addition or, doing some crazy development that didn't already exist on campus, we would be advising that differently. In September, you would need to adopt a project resolution that needs to happen a minimum of 45 days prior to a referendum, because that resolution needs to be put in your legal paper of record a minimum of 45 days before the vote. So an early September Board of Education meeting is the right time for a late October referendum. And on paper, we were looking at something the week of, I think it's October 29th, that Halloween week. Obviously, between the September adoption of the project resolution and that October referendum, there'd be a pretty significant public relations campaign. We have a kickoff meeting tentatively scheduled for next week in anticipation that the board agrees that we should be moving forward in that direction. But again, with your PR team and the marketing support from King & King, we can assist you with any postcards, website material, social media material. We've worked, obviously with dozens of districts. They all do it slightly differently, but we do have a variety of materials that we can assist with, whatever you think is best, the best way to convey the message to your constituents. Any questions on that? Assuming a successful referendum in October, we would immediately begin work on the drawings and the specifications. Obviously, 46 million is big. It's going to take several months. We're anticipating an SED submission in probably August or September of 25. Again, this is one phase, right? So this is unlike the previous referendum that was 4 to 5 phases. We're going in all one shot. And that was another reason why we really wanted to be more intensive in just a few buildings, and some of the other buildings just have a generator, elevator. We don't want to disrupt every single building in your district at the same time over the same 2-year period, right? That's going to be a headache for you. So we will disrupt the high school Kingsford and Fitzhugh, though, pretty significantly. So
again, the goal here is that while we are voting every other year, we're starting and ending projects within 2 years. That's the goal. They're designed to be, we should be able to get the scope of work done within 24 months, maybe 26, 28 months. But they should be, we vote, we're done. And so by the time we're coming to the next, people see progression. They know when the end date is, and so we know what's coming on next. So that's a key piece. Just a reminder when it comes to this particular proposal. So the scope of work, they did talk about the overall projected cost, which is around $46.5 million. They've done a lot of work. They believe that we're about 100% aidable. So that's actually to the positive based on what the projection that Mr. Bick provided to us in that an initial kind of review. So that's why the dollar amount is slightly higher. If you'll remember, the The first project that Mr. Bick kind of outlined was about a $45 million project, assuming 95% of that would be aidable. We believe this is at a much higher level, so therefore, that's why you see a slightly higher dollar amount as an overall project. But we're still looking to finance this entirely through the use of capital reserve. This is without asking the voters for any additional monies. This is 100% financed through capital reserve, and then, of course, we're relying on state aid for a big chunk of that. The exact amount, we're anywhere between $8.5 million of use of capital reserve is what's expected at this time. But Fiscal Advisors is looking to kind of finalize those numbers for us so we have a better picture of what that will ultimately end up being.
So just to clarify, when you say 100% aidable, you mean that every aspect of the project is aidable?
Correct.
Correct. And then typically that aid comes somewhere in around the high 80s% back? Is that usually what it?
Historically, yes. The one piece of this at the transportation and bus garage, bus storage building are two different buildings with SED. So the fire alarm work, which encompasses both of those buildings, they most likely won't aid just the piece that's bus storage. For some reason, they don't like to pay for covered storage in upstate New York. But really, that's the only scope of work that we've identified so far. Again, we don't have press boxes, concession stands, storage buildings, things like that that are not student-occupied spaces and that don't generate building aid.
Thank you.
Something to be thought, and the Facilities Committee has been steeped in this, so they understand it, but when it comes to aid, we have limits, right? So I think Erica used the term maximum cost allowance. Maximum cost allowance is established by the state based on the size and use of our buildings, right? So we can only generate so much aid per building based on that calculation. And that regenerates every 5 years. And so we're always also very thoughtful to make sure, okay, if we touch a building, one project, we may not be able to come back to it for 2 more projects until the maximum cost allowance resets. Because again, what we're trying to do is be fiscal stewards for our community. We do not want to do hardly any work that's not going to receive aid from the state, right? We can do unaided work, and there are actually times where we might need to do unaided work, but we do that only when we have to. Otherwise, we're very, very strategic in making sure we're maximizing that. That means we're maximizing our community's tax dollars and getting the best bang for our buck.
So Ray, could you guys explain to me, we're touching every building in this situation. So how is it that we'll be able to go back in 2 years, that we don't have to, some of these are differentiate for maximum cost allowance? Is that how that works?
Yes. So when we first were working with the Facilities Committee, we actually had a little bit more on the plate for Fitzhugh and Kingsford in our first meetings. And then when we started to work with fiscal advisors and look at those maximum cost allowances per building, we realized, to Dr. Kilmer's point, we need to focus on the highest priorities at Fitzhugh and Kingsford, because if we do that extra $1 million, it would not be aided at your aid ratio because it exceeded the maximum cost allowance. We felt we found things that could make it with good maintenance another 5 years, 2 more projects. So again, that's why we went hard and heavy at Fitzhugh and Kingsford. At the other buildings, Layton, Minetto, there's plenty of maximum cost allowance available. So they most likely, and we've started this planning too, will be in the 2026 referendum or the 2028 referendum.
So the idea is, it's not that we were in the building and have to wait 5 years, it's that we were in the building, didn't hit the maximum cost allowance.
Correct.
So we can still go back in the building and do
Yeah.
other things as long as we stay under that dollar amount for a 5-year period.
If we
So as
had-
Tom was saying, just because we're in it doesn't mean the clock starts 5 years.
Correct. It's a rolling process. If we had $80 million available to us today at with enough reserves to pay for that, you would see probably bigger numbers at Layton and Minetto and Riley to maximize the maximum cost allowance.
As an example, the high school has a construction maximum cost allowance of $43 million.
Yeah.
We're touching $18.5 million. Now, there's also an incidental maximum cost allowance that complicates it. So you're not able to use that full amount. So again, it's a dance. to try to, again, maximize those amounts. So it's always about being very strategic about when projects are coming off, when maximum cost allowance is regenerated.
So could you just clarify, is the idea here with our every 2-year referendum that we're just always in a state of construction? Or is the idea that we finish a phase before we vote for the next one? You know what I'm saying? Like, are we finishing, then voting again, starting another one, finishing, voting again? Or that we're just always constantly running an improvement cycle?
You'll always be under state of construction. With 46.5 million, we're anticipating it'll take a summer, a school year, and a summer. So if those documents go to SED, say in August of '25, we get through SED somewhere, projecting dates, January of '26, we bid in '26, early '26. We're in construction summer of '26, the '26-27 school year, and the summer of '27. And you have a tentative October 26 vote. So they will have seen half, maybe the boiler plants have been done, the Minetto Playground has been completed. And we'll be strategic about that, right? You want to see things are underway and progress and improvements. But 46.5 million is a big chunk, so it's not realistic to get it done in that summer prior to the next referendum.
And that's very much what we're doing right now. As
Yes.
the Facilities Committee, we're planning Phase 4 of the 2018. We're looking to put something out this October for the 2024. So it's kind of the same thing of what we're doing with the current project.
And something to think about too, so our approach is different than 2018, right? So 2018, there was this really large project, and the plan all along was it was going to be a 6 to 8 year construction plan. We're no longer in a position where that makes sense, right? Because we have no idea to project what costs are going to be 4 years out. We struggle with 2 years out. Right? And so they really need to be these smaller chunks so that as the architects and engineers are doing estimates, we feel more confident that the work that we're putting out and bidding will actually get done. Right? We want the project to, as we present, to actually be completed. So that way we can start the planning of that next project as well. And so, if you think about it, we're doing a similar long phase, but we're voting every other year, but they're small chunks in the hopes of making sure we're getting the fullness of the scope that we want.
It also provides some flexibility as well. I mean, from every 2 years versus being locked in since the 2018 referendum, I mean, we'll still have a long-range vision, and we're looking past this 2-year project to what the priorities are going to be for the next one. That's what we've been working on. And with a strategic plan that we came up with for the school district, the long-range, plan, what we might not finish in this referendum, we can pick that right up in the next one. And then, what did you get done? What do you need to add? I mean, it really helps to have a long plan and then break it up in these small segments. It's very helpful for us.
Yeah. The one thing that I would say this, so is there a different way? Could we space them out more? Of course we could. My approach when I spoke with John Bick when we were doing the plan was, as I've walked through these buildings, I've evaluated the BCS, it's clear to me our district's facilities need significant attention. And so the question then is, how do I maximize that? How do I get as much done as quickly as possible? And that's where we came up with the every 2 years. One, it focuses on maximizing aid. It focuses on leveraging capital reserve and doing as much work as we possibly can. Again, think about it. In 10 years, we're talking about getting $175 million worth of work done. That will be extraordinary. But I can tell you in 10 years, someone else is going to be coming forward with another long-range plan for another 10 years because that's the work of school districts. Our buildings are, you've got Fitzhugh and Kingsford that were built in the 1920s. You have the middle school that was built in 1971. You've got this building built in the 80s. We've got buildings that are aging and they need a lot of work. They need a lot of attention. That's the state of education. We're not in a new community where we've put up a bunch of new buildings in the 2000s. So the question then is how do we do it in a way that, again, maximizes state aid and minimizes the impact on our community members when it comes to their tax bill?
Yeah.
81. I flip-flopped him.
Reverse.
I was proud of
That's all
myself, Dave, until you had to throw that on me. Sorry. This was 70. Okay.
Well, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Next on the agenda is superintendent's report. Dr. Kilmer said this was the presentation for the evening. So next we're up to committee discussions. Does the audit committee have anything? No. How about community relations?
We have a newsletter that's coming out soon, and it should be in the mailboxes soon. The calendars also went out, and they will be in the mailboxes by the end of the week, I guess, school calendars.
Great, thank you. Facilities, we've already had a big conversation. Yep, that was it. Thank you. Policy. Anything from policy?
We met last Friday. We did the first section of the review of the entire policy manual, and we meet again.
Great, thank you. And we haven't started visitation because school hasn't started yet. All right, so next on the agenda is our consent agenda. There's only one item. It's the minutes of our August 6th board meeting. So if I can have a motion for consent item A, please.
Make the motion.
Thank you, David. Is there a second? Thank you, Kristen. Any discussion on our minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody against? Anybody abstaining? Thank you. We have one abstention. Thank you, Sean. All right, next on the agenda is personnel. We'll start with item A, which is administrative recommendation for substitute administrators. So I'm going to get a motion for item A, please.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Julie. Any discussion on item A? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda, I'm going to group our professional staff recommendations. We have some resignations, title changes, and appointments. I'm going to look at items B through G. So if we can have a motion for professional staff recommendation, items B through G.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a second?
I'll move.
Thank you, Sean.
I'll second, sorry.
Any discussion on our items B through G?
I had one question regarding B, the resignation of the music teacher at Riley. And we're so close to the year. Was there applications, do we have people for that position that were
She's in the process now of reviewing.
awesome?
Yep.
I just want to know where we were. Thank you.
Any other discussion on items B through G? Okay, having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. I'll group our support staff recommendations. Again, we have some resignations, rescissions, leave of absence, probationary appointments. It's items H through M. So if we can have a motion for items H through M, please. Thank you, Kristen. Is there a second? Thank you, Sean. Any discussion on our support staff recommendations, items H through M? Okay, having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next, we have our extra compensatory and extracurricular recommendations. These are items N through R. I can have a motion, please, for N through R.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, David. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tom. Discussion. N through R. Okay, having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Finance is up, and I'm going to group items A through E. So if I can have a motion for finance items A through E, please.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Sean. Is there a second? Thank you, Sean. Any discussion? Okay, haven't heard none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Items from the board. Are there any board members that have items for the evening? No? Okay, we're good. There is need for an executive session. Matters of collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law, and medical, financial credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation. There will not be a need for a vote afterwards. So if I can have a motion for executive session, please. Thank you, Kristen, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, David. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice evening.